it's me again. This is take 6 of this video. It's crazy. I keep getting interrupted. But today is April 18th, 2022. And I can't really start a video, get interrupted, and come back to it. I have to go into this mantra of thought to do it. I have to focus and go into this thought. So after a fun Saturday of tweeting Morse code with George Palikaris, CEO of MMTLP, that was fun. And that was the first time I've used Morse code since 2006. I haven't used that much Morse code since 2006. We have this tweet Monday from John Berta. John Berta says, FYI, rumor has it that a short and distort attack on MMTLP and MMAT is about to take place. I have not confirmed, but recent price action leads to think that the info that I'm getting is correct. They don't want people to make money on the spin out and then plow it back into MMAT. And then John Berta replies with, look for this information on various social media platforms. So let's talk about some of the possible tactics you will see coming up very shortly on social media platforms. I've done past videos about tackling the FUD and counters to that FUD that you will see. Let's talk about more or less speculate. Again, this is all opinion and speculation. What the possible FUD could be and the counter to that FUD. So let's begin. FUD tactic number 1. Oilco cannot get funding for a spin out. They could not obtain the funding to maintain the lease agreement to fulfill the continuous drilling clause for the lease agreement. This is why Meta gave them the $15 million loan. That is one of the FUD tactics I think that will be used. Meta did give Oilco the loan back in September 1st. The due date for this loan is September 1st, 2022. So the loan will be due here in less than 6 months. It's guaranteed by Greg McCabe, and there's 7% interest on this loan. So let's give a history of why Meta gave this loan. One, Meta was not contractually obliged to give this loan. Legally, Meta, as far as their legal contractual obligations with the dividend, has already been fulfilled, technically. The contractual obligations, the legal contractual obligations that Meta had to the dividend was to provide the Series A preferred share, which was provided when the spin-out happened. That was the contractual obligation that Meta had to the Torchlight holders. It was a 1-for-1. That was already dispersed. Of course, it wasn't expected that it would begin trading, that a market wouldn't be created for it. But a market was created through MMTLP. Meta was not legally obliged to give Torchlight the loan. Why did they do it? FUD wants you to believe that Oilco could not get funding, and because their land, quote unquote, is worthless, and thus they could only get money from Meta. This is not true. Greg McCabe could have gave the money. He guaranteed the loan, so you know he has the money. Meta will be making, as I talked about, Meta has 7% interest on this loan, and they're making $1 million in interest. 7% of $15 million is just over $1 million. Meta's 2021 revenues were $4 million. This is a 25% increase in revenue on the loan. Meta wouldn't have given the loan if they knew it wasn't going to be paid back within a year. They had this money sitting on the books, and they thought it was a very good way to make interest on it. 7% ROI is very good, especially at that time. September of 2021, it was great. Now interest rates were on the up and up, but it was a very good interest rate for Meta. Meta would not get a 7% ROI within 1 year on any R&D project. Thus, they took this route. They already had connections. They went with it. If the dividend was truly valued at 45 cents, how in the heck would Oilco be able to pay back that loan to Meta? If the dividend was truly valued at 45 cents a share, would Meta honestly have given Oilco the loan? FUD will then have you believe that Oilco will not be able to pay back the loan and thus default on it. Meta will then take the assets. Meta will then use the assets for other things or just outright sell them to get more money. As George has stated before, he's not an oil and gas expert. There's a reason why. He's a technology guy, not an oil and gas guy. As it's been stated before by Meta many times, they have to get this asset off the books. Why would they lend this money out as some plan for Oilco to default out and then this asset sort of hangs around in their books when they state that we don't want it? You see, things aren't lining up here, but this is a tactic that will come about, I think. The next tactic that you will continue to see is that the hydrocarbons are non-existent, and this is why they could not sell the property. We've gone over this before on the history of the hydrocarbons, how Rich Masterson would not tie his name to this report, as well as Zabrowski and Mike Mullen, who is the third-party independent petrophysics report. They would not put their names on this report if the oil was non-existent, if the oil and gas asset was non-existent, or not what it was reported to be. Why would they risk that credibility? Other notable names are tied to this are Robert Lance Cook, who was a former chief drilling engineer for Shell in Texas. He has since gone on to start Sage Geosystems, but why would he risk his credibility with this, if the actual oil and gas wasn't what it was claimed to be? Why would he risk his credibility with his new company saying that, if the oil and gas assets are fake, maybe Sage Geosystems is fake? Nobody questions that the fact that his name is tied to this too. I just want to point that out. And the technology to get the oil and gas assets is now much better than it was even 3 years ago. The technology has improved. The technology within wells themselves have improved. There is new in-well technology currently being utilized and tested. That is new information I have from my friends down at the Eagle Ford Shale with the new wells being drilled in Eagle Ford and more or less like Austin Chalk towards College Station. There is new well technology being utilized. And well technology that you can get a much shorter lateral with this new in well technology. You can drill a shorter lateral, put in this new technology, and it'll be equivalent if you drilled a much longer lateral well. It allows, again, more wells on more property. It used to be 200 acres to put one well on your property. Now it's like 49, and with the new technology of the wells, it could be even less. Just a little FYI. But once they realize that the oil and gas amounts do have significant value, the shorts might try to use this tactic. Well, the oil and gas might exist, but it's too difficult or not economically feasible to extract it out. Again, that's where we have to realize that it might have not been economically feasible back in 2016 when they first, were doing testing. Or when they got the property, which was 2012? The Oro Grande, when they got the asset in 2012, things were changing. Things have changed. USGS has redone their survey. There is the new technology, as I just discussed, that make it way more economically feasible. You put in this new technology, you don't have to spend all that money drilling laterally, keep fracking a much longer lateral. You put in this new technology, you can get the same equivalent in a much shorter lateral span. And again, the whole key tactic might be that, it'll again boil down to there's no money that people want to give to this, and thus Oil Co. will default. That's not going to spin out, and it's going to default on its loan. Even after the spin out process, they still might use the whole, it's going to default on its loan to Meta. And that, would, again, kind of help them with their argument that there's no hydrocarbons to be extracted on this property. Which, of course, I wholeheartedly do not believe is true. I believe that there is the amount of hydrocarbons that they say that there is, and that the current technology, the current market situation, the current demand overseas for liquid natural gas, Texas is ramping up. You've seen articles like this where current new well permits are an all-time high for Texas Permian Basin. Governor Abbott reported on it. Now there is the whole BLM thing, which is coming about again, but BLM is very bureaucratic. It's the bureaucratic land management. It's why it's called the Bureau. When you drill on BLM land, you have to submit a permit. You have to do an environmental survey. You have to wait. The waiting time is much longer. It's much more drawn out and more expensive because you have to do all these surveys and permits and studies. The lease might be cheap, but time is money, right? And there's a demand for stuff now. If you go through this whole bureaucratic process, it's going to take over a year. Whereas if you're in Texas, you submit a permit. The only study you have to release is a permit and short water table study with the Texas Environmental Quality Commission, TECQ, when you frack. And you cannot put old fracking water in old wells. Luckily, we don't really have any old wells on the Oro Grande. We do have storage tanks. These are just like a big pond, and a lined pond, you put in a liner, and you can dump your old fracking water there for storage. I saw a lot of stuff with Islas of some of these fire hose and fire system technologies. I'm like, could that apply to fracking water storage tanks, open air storage tanks? Again, there is a lot of FUD that might be coming out, and I think it's good going into this prepared. When you see it, I like to talk about what might happen, because then you see it, you are prepared for it. You say, oh yeah, but I know what to say now. I know how to counteract that. My conviction on the dividend remains very high. If this did not have some value and there wasn't a lot at risk here, there would not be this many tactics to try and dissuade you. They would just leave it as is and say, okay, they just leave it as is. But there's a lot of tactics to dissuade you. I have calculated that this could very well be a $10 to $17 billion sale, and that the dividend would be $29 to $46. Even Berta responds with, they don't want people making money on the spit out and then plowing that back into MMAT. The dividend, like I said, I've calculated it out. I've done the math many times. I've done quite a bit of research on this. I've done a lot of extracurricular research on this. I'm well aware of the new technology in wells being utilized right now. And with this being said, that if you get, those 4 new wells drilled laterally on the property, utilizing that new technology, and if you complete the 2022 drilling plan, which are the 5 new wells, 5 additional wells, you give a demonstration of the property, show what it can do with this new technology, there you go. And their goal is to get you to sell your assets, sell what you have, sell our share of 3.2 billion barrels of oil. That's their goal, is to get you to sell our share of the Oro Grande. And, if certain entities want to come after me, I respond with, I will wear an even more extravagant bird suit. I might even get a beak going. I will become more extravagant with birds as a countermeasure. Okay, guys, that's it for today. I will see you soon. Goodbye.